Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alida Veldsman. I'm the co-author of this paper. I'm from the Nelson Mandela University in South Africa, and I'm going to speak to you about the eReadiness assessment tool for schools. If we are to consider the problem area for the development of this assessment tool for schools, we have to think about that South Africa has been labelled as one of the most unequal countries in the world. And although this inequality is true for the country as a whole, the sector that suffers the most is that of basic education and then secondly healthcare. This paper focuses on basic education, which is primary and secondary schools, and how to measure schools' level of readiness or maturity to receive and successfully implement ICT interventions. Schools in rural South Africa lack the basic infrastructure to deliver effective teaching and learning. South Africa's Department of Basic Education categorizes public schools into 5 quintiles in order to allocate government resources to schools in need. Quintile 1 to 3 schools are no-fee paying schools and are situated in poor communities, mostly rural, which means they are solely dependent on government subsidy. Whilst Quintile 4 and 5 schools are fee-paying schools that are situated in affluent communities, mostly urban, which means they receive very little subsidy from government and are depending on school fees paid by the parents. The quintile ranking system is based on schools' socio-economic status and that of its catchment area. This includes the average income of the parents, unemployment rate in the community, general literacy levels in the schools, and the geographical area where the school is situated. The quintile system has become difficult to implement, as it depends on many variable factors, such as the type of sanitation the school has, whether the school has a library, and whether the parents could actually afford to pay school fees. As can be seen from the photographs taken during our baseline study, there can be a vast difference between schools of the same quintile ranking. Please see the photographs of the 2 quintile 3 schools. One does not even have proper plumbing, whilst the other school has a fully equipped computer lab, which some quintile 4 or 5 schools do not even have. Let us consider the background to this specific project. Firstly, we know that there is a priority to transform basic education outcomes through the use of ICTs, in other words, information communication technology, that being mobile devices, tablet PCs, laptops, desktops, etc. Schools are also expected to be ready to use the ICTs for learning and teaching, and then, needless to say, for administration. What we have, however, discovered is that there is a need for a decision support tool to assist the state of readiness and maturity for the schools to receive ICT infrastructure. We know that often infrastructure is distributed to schools and then they are not necessarily ready, and then a few months later we get there and everything is still packed away beautifully in the boxes and the packaging and not being used. The project rationale, therefore, was based on the first version of a decision support tool developed by the Department of Science and Innovation, formerly known as the Department of Science and Technology. The support tool, the School's ICT Maturity Assessment Tool, was developed during the Tech for Red and ICT for Red sub-project that took place in the Koffenwaba area in the Chris Hani district. This was used to assess the level of ICT readiness and maturity for schools across 5 readiness perspectives, and these are ICT infrastructure, connectivity, curriculum and digital content, e-administration, teacher development, and support. Allow me to provide a short overview of the current project. The ICT Maturity Assessment Tool that was developed by DSI in the previous phases of such a project was a paper-based format and needed to be tested, refined and piloted, and then further developed into a digital tool. The purpose of such a tool is to be used by assessors and teachers, school principals, the likes thereof, to assess the state of ICT readiness and maturity of a particular school prior to any ICT interventions in the schools. This would allow one to see the level at which they are and, of course, the areas that require further improvement. So the Centre for Community Technologies was tasked to test, refine, pilot, and develop the paper-based tool into a digital tool that can be used for the assessment and evaluation of e-readiness and then ultimately the maturity of schools in South Africa in terms of their digital readiness. It is important to note that this is a collaborative project between the Department of Science and Innovation, the Technology Innovation Agency, the Centre for Community Technologies, and then we are also obtaining input from the Department of Basic Education. The outcome of the project is envisaged that together with the digitized tool, we will also provide a policy brief articulating policy implications based on the pilot process, and then in line with the DST policy brief standards, we will provide a full policy brief at the end of this project. In order to develop the ICT metrics further and refine the paper-based tool that we received from the Department of Science and Innovation, we conducted baseline studies in KZN, Mpumalanga, Northwest Province, and then also considered the findings from the Eastern Cape Province under the banner of the ICT for Red project. We then determined new levels of readiness based on international standards and best practices, looking at other countries, developing countries where this has been implemented and used successfully, and came up with the following. The first level being an underdeveloped ICT capacity, level 2, a poor ICT capacity, level 3, moderate ICT capacity, level 4, high ICT capacity, and level 5, advanced ICT capacity. I also have to say that the baseline study was conducted across all quintile levels, thus 1 to 5, and in many different geographical areas in the respective provinces. All in all, we visited close to 80 schools in the respective areas and have a complete baseline study focused on that. As said, the aim of this is to develop a digitized tool. We opted to go for a mobile solution for obvious reasons. Mobile devices have better connectivity in the areas where we need to have connectivity. We're also able to download the mobile app onto a device and allow an assessor or a principal or a teacher to do an assessment in an offline mode, and once they have connectivity, the information is then pushed to a central database. From the central database, we can then draw reports and provide the Department of Basic Education or any other stakeholder with the detailed reports. The app also generates the report on the device, and once the assessment has been completed, the findings and results of the report are immediately available on the device. So we have a self-assessment where the schools then enter their information, and then it also allows for the report to be printed. There are multiple sections, and each of the sections has different entries. I'm just going to show you a slight overview of the solution as we are now entering into the pilot phases thereof. As is visible on the mobile device screens here, Section C deals with leadership and school vision, where there are questions relating to the strategy integrated into the school plan, dedicated ICT teachers at the school, what the school policies are about, how does it support the learners and the inclusion of learners in the special education needs in ICT, what is the willingness, the political will of the school and the surrounding areas to facilitate e-learning. All of this then culminates into a final report which gives you a score for the sections and then an overall ICT capacity. And in this particular case on the report, you can see this school has a moderate ICT capacity. And when going into the details of the report, it will show you which areas are then in need of further attention. When considering such a digital tool, we obviously need to weigh up the benefits thereof, and I think some of the benefits are quite obvious, but let me state them anyway. The benefit is that it will allow a school or the Department of Education to assess and evaluate the school's ICT readiness levels before any intervention can be deployed, and also it will assist in identifying the readiness improvement plans. So it will allow for better planning and improving on the material conditions of the school. As we are concluding, let us review where we are at in this project. The tool has been piloted in the Nelson Mandela Bay area in the Eastern Cape with a number of school principals and teachers, and it has been refined. The tool is now ready to be piloted nationally. It's currently available in the Google Play Store. The draft policy brief has been prepared, and a number of stakeholder engagement events have taken place. So in the remainder of 2020, what will happen is a rollout of this tool. In the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, this becomes rather important as the tool can assist in determining the readiness of schools in terms of going online and digital with their learning structures. The policy brief is currently being refined and will be submitted by the end of July 2020. Finally, just some acknowledgements for funding: the Technology Innovation Agency of South Africa, the Department of Science and Innovation, and then also just the input received from the Department of Basic Education. We thank you for your attention and would welcome any questions.